My own daughter looked me dead in the eye, surrounded by her high society friends, and called me a worthless loser who didn't deserve to live in my own house. I'm Tom Wilson, and I've spent the last 30 years of my life building an empire that my daughter never even bothered to understand. She stood in the very living room I paid for, demanded my $3 million Malibu beach house for her billionaire boyfriend, posted about it on Instagram for 500,000 followers to see, and gave me exactly 24 hours to pack up my junk and get out. What Emma didn't know was that I didn't just own the beach house she was currently trying to steal. I owned the luxury penthouse apartment she thought was hers too. I owned the building where her future father-in-law practiced law. I owned the hotel where she had her first date, and by sunrise the next morning, every single piece of property she thought she was entitled to would be completely gone. Sold off, liquidated, erased from her future. I didn't argue with her. I didn't shout until I was red in the face. I just picked up my phone and made 3 phone calls. This story starts 3 decades ago, when I made a promise to myself about the fine line between giving someone everything and teaching them to value anything. That single broken promise would eventually cost my daughter more than she could ever possibly imagine. Most people look at me and see exactly what my daughter Emma sees. A guy in his mid-50s who drives a 15-year-old Ford pickup truck with faded blue paint, a cracked taillight, and over 180,000 miles on the dashboard. I'm someone who shops at Walmart for $12 flannel shirts, buys my boots on clearance, and brings $15 bottles of wine to dinner parties where everyone else drops $300 without blinking. Emma Wilson is 28 years old, boasts 500,000 Instagram followers, and is absolutely convinced that her old man is the biggest embarrassment of her life. "Dad, you literally look homeless," she told me last month when I showed up to her birthday party at a trendy downtown restaurant. She had pulled me aside, her manicured fingers gripping my worn-out jacket like it was covered in a disease. "Bradford's friends are going to think I come from absolutely nothing. Could you have at least worn a blazer?" Bradford Hayes III, the heir to a $200 million real estate dynasty. He's the kind of guy who drives a custom, $350,000 Lamborghini, wears watches that cost more than a suburban starter home, and speaks to service workers like they are invisible furniture. The first sign that I was completely losing my daughter to this world happened about 6 months ago. She started referring to my Malibu beach house, the home I had lived in for 15 years, the home where I drank my coffee every morning while watching the Pacific sunrise as the family property in her casual conversations. A month later, it became my future inheritance. By the time she got engaged, it was just my house. "When Bradford and I get married, we'll obviously need the beach house," she announced over dinner one evening, swirling a glass of imported Pinot Noir that I had paid for. "It's the only place that makes sense for entertaining his clients. You can move into something smaller, Dad. Somewhere inland, something more appropriate. Appropriate." That single word stuck in my throat like a shard of glass. I had spent my entire adult life making sure she never went without, and now she was deciding what was appropriate for me. The second sign came a few weeks later, when she posted an Instagram story straight from my living room. I wasn't meant to see it, but I had created a quiet, anonymous account just to keep an eye on her public life. The video panned across my vaulted ceilings and the panoramic ocean view. The caption read, "Dealing with family drama, some people just don't understand their place anymore." Making room for the next generation, the comments from her followers were absolutely brutal. Thousands of strangers calling me a boomer dad who was holding back his brilliant daughter's success. One person wrote, "Girl, just take what's yours. Old people don't need $3 million beach houses to sit around and do nothing." Emma screenshotted the absolute worst of those comments and texted them to me later that night. Her follow-up text read, "See, Dad, even strangers on the internet get it. It's just how things work." I never responded to those texts. I just saved them. I saved everything. What Emma doesn't know, what she has willfully ignored for her entire adult life, is that I've been watching her Instagram stories for months. I've watched her show off the sprawling, modern penthouse apartment that I pay $8,000 a month for. I've watched her unbox the $35,000 Hermes Birkin bag I bought her for her college graduation. I've watched her pose in front of the $95,000 Range Rover lease that gets automatically deducted from my checking account on the first of every single month. In her carefully curated, filter-perfect world, she earned all of it. She manifested it. She worked hard as a content creator. To her, I was just the lucky, bumbling guy who inherited one nice beach house from my parents and somehow managed to scrape together enough pennies to keep paying for her lifestyle. My dad's kind of a fixer-upper person. I heard her tell Bradford's mother, Patricia Hayes, at a charity event last spring. I had been standing just around the corner, holding a plate of appetizers. He comes from a very blue-collar background. He tries his best, of course, but he doesn't really understand how things work in our social circle. Our social circle, she said it with such casual arrogance, completely forgetting who built the very foundation she was standing on. Bradford found this entire dynamic charming. It's so authentic, he told his friends loudly, well within earshot of me, during a weekend barbecue. Emma's keeping it real despite her advantages. It shows character to rise above a humble background. Her advantages, the advantages that had apparently materialized out of thin air. The advantages that were funded by my blood, sweat, and 30 years of relentless 60-hour work weeks. But the absolute breaking point, the moment that shifted my mindset from disappointed father to a man ready to teach a devastating lesson, wasn't the internet comments. It wasn't the casual dismissal of my presence. It wasn't even the breathtaking entitlement. It was what happened exactly 3 weeks ago, when Emma brought Bradford to my house for a private dinner. They walked through my front door, like they were arriving for a property inspection. They didn't greet me. Bradford immediately started pacing the living room, measuring the walls with his eyes, muttering about maximizing the ocean view and updating the outdated finishes. The kitchen needs a complete gut renovation, Emma agreed, tapping her phone screen as she looked at my pristine granite countertops. The appliances are at least 5 years old. It's embarrassing. Maybe we can get started on the architectural plans while Dad's still here. While I'm still here, in my own house, Dad, Emma said as they were finally leaving, stopping in the doorway with Bradford's arm draped possessively around her waist. Bradford and I have been talking. We're ready to take over the property management. You've done your part, and we appreciate it. But it's time for people who actually understand real estate to handle things from here on out. People who understand real estate. I looked at Bradford, with his slick-back hair and his trust fund confidence, and then at my daughter, who had never paid a utility bill in her entire life. I nodded slowly. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't defend myself, I just said nothing. That night, as they drove off in the Range Rover I paid for, Emma had absolutely no idea what kind of avalanche she had just triggered. The text message arrived at exactly 7:30 the next morning. I was sitting on my back deck, a mug of black coffee in my hand, listening to the waves crash against the shore. The sun was just starting to burn off the morning fog when my phone buzzed on the glass patio table. Dad, Bradford and I have decided we need you out of the beach house by next Friday. We're having the locks changed on Saturday morning and starting the interior renovations on Monday. I've already called a realtor friend of mine to help you find something more suitable for your budget in the valley. My budget, she honestly thought she understood my budget. I set my coffee mug down slowly. I didn't feel angry at first. I felt a cold, sharp clarity wash over me. I dialed her number immediately. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice thick with sleep and irritation. Emma, I said, keeping my tone perfectly level, we need to talk about this text message you just sent me. There's nothing to talk about, Dad. She sighed heavily, the sound of rustling silk sheets in the background. I'm 28 years old. I'm getting married to a man who comes from a very prominent family, and I need to start building my life. You can't honestly expect me to wait around forever for you to make room. Make room, I repeated. In my own house, Dad, come on, stop being so dramatic, she groaned. You know exactly what I mean. The house is family property. It should naturally go to the next generation. Bradford's parents have already offered to help with your moving expenses out of the goodness of their hearts. They feel bad for you. Bradford's parents offering to help me move out of my own house because they pity me. The sheer audacity of the situation was almost comical. What if I asked quietly? What if I refused to leave my home? Emma laughed, a genuine, condescending little laugh. Dad, be realistic for once in your life, she said, her voice dripping with pity. You can't afford to maintain a $3 million coastal property on whatever meager retirement savings you have left. The property taxes alone are probably killing you. Bradford said your one bad pipe burst away from bankruptcy. This is better for everyone. We're actually saving you. Whatever savings I have, property taxes, that are probably killing me. Emma, do you even know how I afford the taxes on this house? I asked. Inheritance, right? Grandpa left the house to you when he died, she answered quickly, dismissing the question as irrelevant. Look, Dad, I'm grateful for what you've provided over the years, I really am. But I need to think about my future now. Bradford and I have actual plans. We have a social standing to maintain. Actual plans. As opposed to whatever I've been doing for the past 30 years. What happens if I refuse to leave, Emma? Because I don't plan on packing my bags. Her tone shifted instantly, turning cold and corporate. Dad, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Bradford's father is a senior partner at a major real estate law firm. He knows property law inside and out. He says squatters' rights don't apply to family disputes over inheritance. And since you never put the house in a proper trust or anything, we can easily work something out legally to expedite the transfer. Squatters' rights. She was threatening me with squatters' eviction laws. In a house whose mortgage I paid off in cash a decade ago. I'll need to see these legal options in writing, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Fine, Emma snapped. Bradford is sending over some official papers this afternoon via courier. Just remember, Dad, we're trying to do this the nice way. Don't force us to get the attorneys involved. It would be embarrassing for you. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat alone on my deck for a long time, looking out at the endless expanse of the ocean. I've watched the sun rise through these specific windows for 15 years. I had watched Emma grow up on that very beach, building sandcastles and learning to swim. And now I realized with brutal finality, my daughter genuinely believed she was doing me a favor by kicking me to the curb. She thought she was the hero of this story. The legal papers arrived by private courier at exactly 2 o'clock that afternoon. They were presented in a thick, expensive leather binder, printed on beautifully textured, embossed letterhead from Hayes & Associates, Bradford's father's elite law firm. I took the binder to my kitchen island, poured myself a glass of ice water, and began to read. The legal language was impeccably polite, aggressively formal, and absolutely terrifying if you were a broke old man who didn't understand the law. I was given exactly 30 days to transition ownership of the Malibu property to Emma Wilson, or face formal legal proceedings to resolve the inheritance dispute in probate court. An inheritance dispute for a house I bought with my own hard-earned money. The letter included a meticulously detailed, deeply insulting timeline for my departure. Week 1. Pack all personal belongings and clear non-essential clutter from the premises. Week 2. Coordinate with Emma's chosen luxury realtor to locate appropriate alternative housing. Income-restricted apartments recommended. Week 3. Sign final property transfer documents and surrender all keys and alarm codes. Week 4. Complete move-out and arrange for professional deep cleaning at current occupant's expense. They had even taken the liberty of calculating my estimated living expenses going forward, based on the typical retirement income for an individual of your blue-collar professional background. The number they suggested I was living on was so low, it wouldn't even cover the annual landscaping bill for my front yard. But what really made my blood run cold, the part that finally severed whatever lingering parental guilt I had left, was the final paragraph, signed personally by Bradford Hayes II. We understand this transition may be emotionally difficult for a man of your age. Thomas, however, we are confident this arrangement serves everyone's long-term interests, including your own financial stability. By removing this tremendous financial burden from your shoulders, we are ensuring you don't face insolvency in your twilight years. My own financial stability. They weren't just stealing my home, they were patting themselves on the back for it. They truly believed they were rescuing a helpless, financially illiterate old fool from the brink of ruin. I read the letter 3 times, committing the sheer arrogance of their words to memory. Then, I closed the leather binder, walked down the hallway to my private office, and locked the door behind me. I walked over to the heavy steel filing cabinet in the corner of the room. I hadn't touched it in months. It was the one cabinet Emma had never seen inside, the one I kept locked with a biometric fingerprint scanner. I pressed my thumb against the sensor. The heavy locking mechanism clicked open with a satisfying thud. I pulled out the top drawer. The documents were exactly where I left them, neatly organized in thick, color-coded folders. Ocean View Holdings Incorporation papers, commercial property acquisition records, trust account bank statements, deeds of trust, and tucked in the very back, a pristine copy of a Forbes magazine from 2 years ago. The cover story title read, "The Stealth Moguls of Coastal Real Estate." I spread everything out across the dark oak wood of my desk. I took out my phone and took high-resolution pictures of the Hayes and Associates legal threat. Then, I pulled out a legal pad, uncapped my pen, and made a list of the 3 phone calls I needed to make. The time for being the quiet, unassuming father was over. If they wanted to play ruthless real estate games, I was going to show them how the game was actually played. First on my list was Margaret Anderson, my personal attorney and ruthless legal bulldog for the past 25 years. I dialed her direct line. She picked up on the very first ring. "Tom," she said, her voice sharp and efficient. But then she paused. "What's wrong?" "You sound different, Tom. You never call this early in the afternoon, unless a deal is falling apart." "I need you to prepare some documents, Margaret, and I need them fast." "What kind of documents?" she asked, the typing on her keyboard pausing. "The kind that teach my daughter the very harsh difference between a guaranteed inheritance and a foolish assumption," I said flatly. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. She had known Emma since she was a little girl in pigtails running around my office. "How fast is fast, Tom?" 24 hours. 24 hours for property transfers of that magnitude." She exhaled sharply. "Tom, that's pushing it, even for me and Margaret," I added, staring down at the condescending legal threat from Hayes and Associates. "Make sure every single comma and clause is absolutely ironclad. No loopholes, no room for contestation, because this is going to get very public, very quickly." "Consider it done," she said, her tone shifting into pure litigator mode. "I'll have my team work through the night." Second call, James Taylor, the Vice President of Operations at Ocean View Holdings. "Tom," James boomed through the speaker, "we weren't expecting to hear from you until next month's quarterly board meeting. Don't tell me you're getting bored of retirement already." "Change of plans, James," I said, my voice completely devoid of its usual warmth. "I need you to expedite the Harrison Group deal we've been sitting on." I heard James choke on his coffee. "The Harrison deal?" "Tom, they want the crown jewels." "You're talking about both Malibu properties." "Exactly. Both Malibu properties, the beach house and the luxury apartment complex." "At what price point?" James asked, his voice entirely professional now. "Full asking price, cash only, no contingencies, no extended inspection periods." "And James?" "I need you to close it within 12 hours. 12 hours? James exclaimed. "Tom, it's possible, but Harrison Development Group is going to bleed us on the expedited paperwork fees." "I don't care about the fees. I know it's possible, because we've done it before during the '08 crash." "Make it happen. Contact their legal team right now, and tell them if they can wire the funds by sunrise. The properties are theirs." "Understood, boss. I'm on it." Third call, Dr. Patricia Brown, the high-end family therapist. Emma and I had seen briefly last year when Emma complained I was being too controlling by asking her to stick to a budget. "Dr. Brown, it's Tom Wilson. I need to schedule an emergency session for tomorrow morning at 9. And I need you to have your notepad ready to thoroughly document everything we discuss regarding Emma's mental state and her aggressive financial entitlement." By sunset, the massive invisible machinery of my empire was in full motion. Contracts were being drafted in downtown high-rises. Wire transfers were being staged by offshore banking executives. My daughter, sitting in the penthouse I paid for, swiping her credit card that I funded, had absolutely no idea what kind of financial hurricane was barreling toward her. The engagement dinner party was Bradford's brilliant idea. He called it an intimate, small gathering. In his world, that meant 23 high society guests stuffed into my living room, drinking imported wine that cost more than my monthly truck payment. They stood in tight little circles, discussing global real estate markets, upcoming charity galas, and the renovation costs of their vacation homes in Aspen. Emma was holding court in the center of the room, wearing a stunning silk dress I had paid for last month. On her left hand sparkled a $30,000 engagement ring Bradford had surprised her with that afternoon. She kept pulling her phone out every 15 minutes, posting new Instagram stories, making sure to show off the massive diamond against the backdrop of the vaulted ceilings and the crashing waves of my beach house. "Our beach house," she wrote in her captions, "so blessed to start our forever here." I arrived exactly on time, stepping through my own front door, carrying a bottle of red wine I had purchased from the local grocery store. It cost exactly $15.99. The cashier had given me a strange look when I bought it, glancing at my faded flannel shirt like I was making some kind of tragic financial mistake. "Dad," Emma rushed over the moment she saw me step into the foyer, but she didn't look happy. I could see the sheer, unadulterated panic in her eyes as she scanned my outfit. I hadn't changed. I was wearing my work boots and a denim jacket. "You made it," she said through gritted teeth, trying to force a smile for the guests watching us. "Wouldn't miss it," I said smoothly, holding out the cheap bottle of wine. "Congratulations on your engagement, Emma." She snatched the bottle from my hand, so fast she almost dropped it. She immediately spun around and shoved it into the hands of Bradford's mother, Patricia Hayes, who happened to be walking by in a designer gown. "Oh, thank you so much, Tom," Patricia Hayes purred. She adjusted her diamond necklace and glanced down at the label of my grocery store wine. A tight, condescending smile spread across her heavily botoxed face, the exact kind of smile rich people use when they're being painfully polite about poor people's things. "How wonderfully thoughtful. We'll just put this in the back with the others. I'm sure the caterers can use it for cooking." Bradford appeared at Emma's shoulder a second later, wearing a bespoke suit and a Patek Philippe watch that probably cost more than most people earn in a decade. "Tom, great to see you, sir," Bradford beamed, slapping me patronizingly on the shoulder. He didn't offer to shake my hand. "Emma's been telling everyone here about the house transition. We really appreciate you cooperating. Very smooth process, all things considered. House transition." He said it with such breezy confidence, like it was a business deal that had already been stamped and filed. I looked Bradford dead in the eye, dropping the polite, bumbling father act I had maintained for years. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying a hard, unyielding edge that made Bradford blink in surprise, "I haven't agreed to anything yet." The ambient conversation in our immediate circle suddenly got a little quieter. Not quiet enough for everyone in the massive room to hear, but quiet enough that I knew the surrounding guests were suddenly paying very close attention. Emma's face went tight. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped her champagne flute. "Dad," she hissed under her breath, leaning in close so only I could hear. "We talked about this. You got the letter. Bradford's father already sent the formal papers." "It's done." I read the papers, Emma, carefully. "But I have some serious questions." Bradford puffed out his chest, stepping an inch closer to me in a pathetic attempt at physical intimidation. "Okay. What kind of questions, Tom?" "My father is the best real estate attorney in the state. His firm was very thorough with the documentation. There shouldn't be any confusion. Legal questions," I replied calmly, crossing my arms. "Questions about legitimate ownership, property deeds, and the actual application of inheritance law in the state of California." Patricia Hayes materialized beside us again, holding a crystal glass of wine that definitely hadn't come from my $15 bottle. She looked me up and down with barely concealed disgust. "Is there some kind of problem here, Tom?" Patricia asked, her voice laced with aristocratic venom. Emma looked completely mortified. She was glancing around nervously, terrified that her wealthy new friends were witnessing a peasant uprising in the middle of her perfect party. "No problem, Patricia," Emma stammered quickly, trying to laugh it off. "Dad's just being his usual cautious self. He doesn't understand legal jargon." "Cautious about what?" "Exactly," Patricia pressed, her voice adopting the sharp, impatient tone that rich people use when poor people aren't doing what they're told fast enough. "Cautious about signing over the property rights to a $3 million house that I have owned outright for 15 years, I said, my voice projecting clearly. The entire room got noticeably quieter this time. The soft jazz music playing over the sound system suddenly felt very loud. Bradford let out a forced, arrogant chuckle, shaking his head. "Tom, buddy, I think there's been a massive misunderstanding on your part. The beach house has been in Emma's family for generations, right? You inherited it. You've had your time here. This paperwork is just making the transition to the next generation official, so we can begin the renovations without any legal hiccups." "Actually," I said, raising my voice just enough so the guests pretending to look at the ocean could hear me perfectly clearly, "I didn't inherit this house, Bradford. I bought this house in 2009, with my own money. In cash." Emma's face flushed a humiliating crimson. "Dad, stop it," she hissed, grabbing my arm. "You're embarrassing yourself." "How am I embarrassing myself by stating simple legal facts?" I asked, looking down at her hand until she slowly pulled it away. Patricia Hayes interjected smoothly. "It's very common for older individuals to feel irrationally attached to a property. Change is hard for people in your financial bracket. We understand people to feel attached, She said it like I was a stubborn tenant who had severely overstayed his welcome. Mrs. Hayes, I said, since you're so involved in this transition, what do you think my annual income actually is? Because the taxes alone on this house are $42,000 annually. In cash, Bradford frowned. Your father's legal letter mentioned that your inheritance covered the property expenses. What inheritance? I asked sharply. The entire room of 21 wealthy guests had completely stopped their conversations, straining to hear every word of this society car crash. What money? Bradford's voice lost its polite veneer. Tom, no offense, but Emma mentioned you're retired. Where exactly is the money for maintenance and insurance coming from? That's a very good question, I said slowly, looking at my daughter. Emma, why don't you tell your fiancé where you think the money comes from? Emma looked trapped. Dad, we don't need to get into your personal finances here. Patricia Hayes set down her wine glass. I really think this conversation would be better suited for a private office. Would it? I asked, pulling out my smartphone, because Bradford seemed very confident about property law 5 minutes ago. And Emma has already announced our house transition to 500,000 people on the internet. Emma's face went ghostly white. Dad, what are you talking about? I held up the screen so she and Bradford could see the screenshot of her Instagram story from that morning. I read the caption out loud. Moving forward with family property decisions. Some people need to learn when it's time to step aside and make room for the next generation. I swiped to the next photo. You had 1,000 comments in 6 hours. Emma, variations of yes girl. Take what's yours, and boomer dads need to get out of the way. You posted this from my kitchen island. She stared at the phone, trembling. I was just excited about our future in my house that you plan to evict me from. Bradford cleared his throat. Tom, look, maybe we should table this discussion until my father can be present. Why? I demanded. I think it's time everyone in this room understood exactly what kind of inheritance we are actually talking about. I turned my back, walked down the hallway to my private office, and returned carrying a thick red legal folder. Emma watched me like I was carrying a live grenade. I set the folder on the coffee table. I pulled out my phone and dialed Margaret Anderson's number on speaker. Margaret, I said when she answered, I need you to walk me through something in front of witnesses. Emma reached out. Dad, hang up right now. I stepped away. Margaret, hypothetically, if someone bought a luxury property with their own cash 15 years ago, and their adult child started claiming inheritance rights and demanding eviction, what would you call that? If they attempted to force a transfer through intimidation, I'd call it a potential fraud case. Tom, Margaret's voice projected crisply. Patricia Hayes stepped forward. Tom, this is incredibly inappropriate. Mrs. Hayes, I shot back. Your son and your future daughter-in-law announced their plans to steal my house to 500,000 social media followers. Privacy sailed this morning. I turned back to the phone. Margaret, what if that same child had their boyfriend's father draw up legal papers threatening the actual property owner with formal probate proceedings? That would depend on the language, Margaret said seriously. But it could easily constitute attempted extortion. Bradford went pale. Wait a damn minute. And Margaret, I interrupted loudly. What if the actual owner had irrefutable documentation, proving ownership of multiple additional massive properties that the claimant doesn't even know exist? The entire room went dead silent. Tom, Margaret asked slowly, are we talking about the Ocean View Holdings portfolio? Ocean View Holdings. The name hit the room like a physical shockwave. 3 men in the back visibly flinched. Emma stared at me, crying, what's Ocean View Holdings? Margaret, explain to my daughter what Ocean View Holdings is. It is a premier luxury coastal property management company, Margaret recited. They own and operate over 200 premium rental properties across 15 states. The current portfolio value is approximately $85 million. Bradford gasped for air silently. And Margaret, I finished, staring into my daughter's terrified eyes. Who founded Ocean View Holdings? You did, Tom. You're the founding CEO and sole owner. I hit the end call button. The silence in the room was absolute. Emma's voice finally broke the suffocating silence. It came out as a fragile, trembling whisper. That's not possible. Which part isn't possible? Emma, I asked, looking at her with cold detachment. You're my dad, she stammered, shaking her head as if trying to physically dislodge the information. You drive a 15-year-old truck with a cracked bumper. You buy your clothes at Walmart You literally just brought a $15 bottle of wine to my engagement party. I did. I nodded calmly. I also own the 20-story commercial building downtown where Bradford's father leases his law office. Bradford made a bizarre, strangled choking sound in the back of his throat. He took a physical step backward, bumping into a high-top table. And, I continued, turning to look directly at Bradford's mother, who was currently clutching her diamond necklace, as if she were having a heart attack. I also own the boutique office park in Santa Monica, where Patricia's interior design firm is currently located. You've been paying your monthly rent to my subsidiary corporation for the past 6 years. Patricia. Thank you for your business, by the way. You're a wonderful tenant. Patricia Hayes looked like she had just seen a ghost. The color had completely drained from her heavily made-up face, leaving her looking old and utterly terrified. And I said, turning my eyes back to my daughter, I own the seaside luxury hotel in Laguna Beach where you and Bradford had your very first date. It's property number 47 in the Ocean View portfolio. I upgraded your room to the bridal suite that night, for free. Did you enjoy the champagne? Emma sat down hard on the pristine white couch. Her knees had simply given out. This isn't real. You're making this up to embarrass me. I didn't argue. I simply opened the red legal folder I had placed on the coffee table. Bank statements from First National Trust, I said, pulling out a thick stack of certified documents and dropping them onto the glass table. As of yesterday afternoon, my liquid assets total $87.2 million. I pulled out the next document. It was a pristine copy of Forbes magazine, the September 2022 issue. The bold headline on the cover read, America's Invisible Real Estate Kings. Page 63, I said, tossing the magazine onto the pile. There's a full-page photo of me sitting in this exact living room. The editorial board called me the Phantom of Pacific Property. Emma leaned forward, her hands shaking so violently she could barely grip the glossy pages. She flipped to page 63. I watched her eyes rapidly scan the text, her breathing growing shallow and panicked. I kept pulling documents from the folder, property acquisition records for the past 15 years. 220 properties purchased, gutted, renovated, and converted to high-end luxury rentals. Average return on investment is 32% annually. I pulled out my phone and unlocked it, opening a proprietary encrypted application. I held it out for Bradford to see. This is the Ocean View Holdings Management Dashboard, I explained, scrolling through the interface. It tracks real-time occupancy rates across all 15 states, revenue pipelines, and maintenance schedules. Let's look at today's gross revenue, shall we? I tapped the screen. $43,812. And it's only 8 p.m. That's impossible, Bradford sputtered, his face red and sweating. He looked like a man who had just realized he was standing on a landmine. You're a handyman. Emma said you used to fix things for people in the neighborhood. I still fix things, Bradford, I replied smoothly. I buy broken, distressed properties, I rip out the rot, and I turn them into highly profitable, cash-flowing businesses. I looked back at Emma. She was staring at the bank statements, completely catatonic. Emma, do you remember earlier this week when you asked me where the money comes from to pay the property taxes on this beach house? She nodded numbly, unable to speak. This house generates $12,000 a month in premium rental income when you're not here demanding to use it, I said. Which, let's be honest, is most of the time, Emma blinked. Confused. Rental income. From where? Who? The guest cottage behind the main house. The one you constantly use for your Instagram photo shoots and brand deals. That's a separate unit? She whispered. It rents for $4,000 a month. Your photographer friend, Jenny, the one you invited to stay for the summer? She's been paying rent through the Ocean View corporate booking system since June. Jenny pays rent? Emma gasped, looking genuinely horrified. To you? Jenny pays premium seasonal rates, Ocean View, private beach access, proximity to celebrity properties in Malibu. It's very popular with content creators. She's actually one of my best tenants. Bradford finally found his voice again, though it was significantly higher in pitch than it had been 10 minutes ago. Tom, if all of this is actually true, if you're really worth $85 million, why do you live like what, Bradford? I challenged, stepping toward him. Like someone who doesn't desperately need to prove his net worth to strangers by leasing sports cars and wearing obnoxious jewelry. Patricia Hayes had leaned over, and was reading the Forbes article over Emma's trembling shoulder. I could hear her reading the text under her breath. Thomas Wilson, founder and CEO of Ocean View Holdings. Estimated net worth $85 million, known for his notoriously low-profile lifestyle and aggressive, hands-on management approach. Patricia slowly looked up at me, her eyes wide with shock and a sudden sickening realization of her own arrogance. You're the phantom of Pacific Property I prefer, Tom, I said coldly. But yes. Emma dropped the magazine. It hit the floor with a soft slap. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her flawless makeup, ruining her expensive mascara. Dad, she sobbed, her voice breaking. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you hide this from me my entire life? Because you never asked, Emma. The words hung in the air, heavy and inescapable. You looked at my old truck. You looked at my cheap clothes. And you assumed you knew absolutely everything there was to know about my financial situation. I said, my voice softening just a fraction, laced with years of quiet disappointment. You assumed I was a failure. You assumed I was lazy. You assumed I was a burden. But I'm your daughter. She cried out. I should have known. You should have told me. Should you have known? I asked softly. Emma, tell me the truth. When is the very last time you asked me about my day? When is the last time you asked me what I was working on? Or how I was feeling, or what my plans were for the future? She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. I'll wait, I said. The entire room waited with me. 21 incredibly uncomfortable wealthy guests stood in absolute silence, watching my daughter violently realize that she didn't know a single, solitary thing about her own father's life. Finally, she bowed her head, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I don't remember, neither do I. I said what she found on my desk that morning, the legal threats, the entitlement, the sheer lack of respect had nearly broken my heart. But watching her realize the magnitude of her colossal mistake was a different kind of pain entirely. Emma couldn't take it anymore. She scrambled to her feet, grabbed her purse, and ran for the front door without saying goodbye to a single guest. She dragged Bradford out behind her by the sleeve of his expensive suit. They both looked like they had been hit by a freight train. The remaining guests found very polite, very urgent excuses to leave within the next 20 minutes. By 10 o'clock that night, I was completely alone in my massive beach house. I sat at my kitchen island, surrounded by 23 empty, expensive wine glasses, and sat with the cold, heavy satisfaction of watching entitled people realize that their arrogant assumptions had very real, very devastating consequences. But the night wasn't over, not even close. At exactly 11:30 p.m., my phone started buzzing violently. Emma had gone live on Instagram. I watched my daughter have a complete, unfiltered psychological meltdown in real time. She was sitting in her Range Rover, tears ruining her expensive makeup, broadcasting to her 500,000 followers. My whole life has been a massive lie, she sobbed. My dad has been pretending to be poor this entire time. The comments section exploded. He's apparently worth $85 million, she gasped. And he let me think he was some broke retiree. He drives a piece of junk truck. He owns like 200 properties. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, and I've been paying for our dinners because I thought he couldn't afford the bill. Bradford appeared in the frame, panicking. Babe, turn it off. No, Emma snapped. My followers deserve to know. He's been charging people rent to stay in our beach house. Like Jenny, she's been paying $4,000 a month to stay in the guest house. The live viewer count climbed to 48,000. He's been testing me, Emma cried, watching me make assumptions about his money, letting me plan my future around inheriting his house, and just waiting for me to reveal what kind of person I really am. And I failed. I tried to steal my own father's house today because I thought he was too poor and stupid to stop me. The comments were split. Some defended her, but most were brutal. This is what pure entitlement looks like. Bradford's dad sent legal papers to my father today, Emma confessed, ignoring Bradford's attempts to grab the phone. Legal papers threatening him with court if he didn't just give up his house. And my dad let us do it. He let us make complete fools of ourselves. 52,000 viewers. You know what the really sick part is? Emma whispered. He pays for everything, my luxury apartment, my car, my credit cards, and I somehow convinced myself that I deserved all of it. She held up her cracked secondary phone, displaying the Instagram story she had posted that morning. I posted about family property decisions and people needing to step aside. I told 500,000 people that my poor old dad needed to make room for me. The viewer count hit 64,000. Bradford's mother offered to pay for his moving boxes because she thought he was too broke to afford cardboard. And my dad just stood there and let it happen. He let me show 500,000 people what I'm really like when I think no one important is watching. Emma looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this, Dad, I'm sorry, and I completely understand if you never forgive me. She ended the stream. 64,000 people had just watched my daughter destroy her own digital reputation. By sunrise, her life as she knew it was over. Emma showed up at my house at exactly 6:15 a.m. I was sitting on the back deck, drinking my black coffee. She walked out in yesterday's expensive silk dress, holding her phone with a newly cracked screen. Her viral meltdown had already been clipped and shared across the internet. Can we talk? She asked softly. Of course. She sat down, staring out at the ocean. Last night, was any of that planned? Did you know Bradford and I were going to try to take the house, and you just let us do it? Emma, did you plan to try to take my house? She looked down. No, yes. Bradford's parents suggested it. They said you were struggling financially and too proud to ask for help. And you chose to believe them? I wanted to believe them, she admitted. It felt like I was being the adult for once. Emma, how much do you honestly think it costs to maintain this beach house? I don't know, she whispered. Maybe 10,000 a month? Closer to 15, I corrected her. Property taxes, coastal insurance, maintenance, landscaping. I've been paying $15,000 a month for 15 years. 2.7 million total. I stood up. Come with me. I walked her down the hallway to a different, much larger filing cabinet in my office. These are the acquisition records, I said, pulling out a binder. I started Ocean View Holdings with a foreclosed duplex in Venice Beach. I now own 220 properties, beach houses, mountain cabins, downtown lofts across 16 states. I opened my laptop to the management portal. Look at this week's revenue. Emma leaned in. Dad, that says you made $312,000 this week. In 1 week, you made more money than most people make in 5 years. She gasped. Where did you think it was going, Emma? Did you think I was just extremely organized? I thought you were just organized. She cried. Look at this office. It's so basic, it's efficient. I don't need a mahogany desk to make money. I pulled out the Forbes article. Did you read the part about the employee benefits? Emma scanned the page. Thomas Wilson has anonymously funded college scholarships for the children of his employees, totaling $843,000 over the past 10 years. You put 47 kids through college. Investing in their families is investing in the business. Emma sat down heavily. How many houses do you own that I don't even know about? Emma, you know about exactly 2 properties in my entire portfolio. This beach house and your luxury apartment building in the city. Wait, you own my apartment building? I bought it 3 years ago. I thought you'd be much more comfortable if I controlled your living situation. Emma put her head in her hands. Oh my God, but Emma, I said softly, there's something else you need to know. I don't own those 2 properties anymore. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? I sold them yesterday morning. I sold everything you thought was yours. Emma stared at me in complete, utter shock. Her jaw physically dropped. You sold my apartment? She choked out. I sold both of them, the beach house and the apartment complex. The new owners take full legal possession at noon today. Right on cue, exactly at 7 a.m., my phone rang. It was James Taylor, my VP of Operations. I tapped the screen and put him on speaker so Emma could hear every word. Tom, it's done, James announced, sounding exhausted but triumphant. Both Malibu properties sold to Harrison Development Group. The wire transfers cleared our corporate accounts 23 minutes ago. $6.4 million total for the beach house and the guest cottage. Cash deal, no contingencies. Emma listened, her mouth hanging open. James, can you confirm the timeline for the record? I asked. Sale contracts were officially executed at 6:07 a.m., James confirmed. Property transfers were filed electronically with the county clerk 6:31 a.m. Harrison Group's attorneys are drafting the possession notices right now. They should be served by 10 a.m. And the third property, James? I prompted. Emma looked confused. Third property? The Oceanfront Towers apartment complex in the city, James said clearly. Where Emma lives, sale finalized at 6:54 am. Harrison paid $82 million, also cash. Emma stood up so fast that my heavy desk chair tipped backward and crashed onto the floor. You sold my entire apartment building. To strangers? Harrison Development Group is Bradford's family's absolute biggest competitor in the commercial space. James continued over the speakerphone, entirely unaware of Emma's reaction. They were highly motivated to acquire those prime coastal properties, Tom. Especially since they've been off-market for years. I smiled, a cold, calculated smirk. James, can you explain to Emma what Harrison Development Group plans to do with those properties? Complete renovation and repositioning, James replied efficiently. The beach house is being gutted to become a private corporate retreat center for their executives. The apartment building is being converted into luxury condominiums. They're initiating a standard 60-day tenant relocation timeline. Emma grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my sleeve. Dad, that means I have to move out in 60 days. It means you have to move out in 60 days, I confirmed, hanging up the phone. But where am I supposed to live? She panicked, pacing around the small office. I don't know where to go. I don't have any money saved. You pay for everything. That is an excellent question, Emma, I said, pulling out my phone and opening my personal banking app. Where do you plan to live, Dad? I can't afford a new apartment. I need my trust fund. Emma, look at this account, I said, holding the screen up to her face. She leaned over, her eyes frantically scanning the numbers. Emma Wilson Trust Fund, current balance, $. What happened to my trust fund? She gasped, looking at me like I had just robbed her. You never had a trust fund, Emma, I stated plainly. You had a monthly allowance that I manually transferred from my personal checking account. $8,000 for your rent, $3,000 for your living expenses, $2,000 for your discretionary spending. That is $13,000 a month, every single month, for the past 7 years. Emma rapidly did the math on her phone calculator. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped the device on the desk. Dad, that's over $1 million, $1,092,000, to be exact. I said, where is it going to come from now? It's not, she whispered. Exactly, it's not. The monthly transfers stop today. Your apartment lease terminates in 60 days. Your $95,000 Range Rover lease terminates when this month's payment bounces. Your platinum credit cards get automatically canceled at noon, when the auto-pay accounts are officially closed. Dad, you can't just cut me off completely. She shrieked, genuine panic setting in. I don't know how to survive without that money. Can I ask softly? Suddenly, Emma's phone started buzzing violently on the desk. She looked down at the cracked screen and went even paler than before. Bradford calling, answer it, I commanded. She swiped a trembling finger to accept the call and put it on speaker. Bradford's voice came blasting through the tiny speaker, frantic, furious, and practically screaming. Emma, what the hell did your father do? Bradford, my dad just got a phone call from Harrison Development Group. Bradford yelled. They own our properties now. All of them, I know, Bradford, she cried. He sold them. He sold them to our biggest competitors. Bradford bellowed. Do you have any idea what this means for my family's business pipeline? We had investors lined up for those properties. Emma looked at me helplessly, tears streaming down her face. Bradford, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was going to. Sorry doesn't cut it, Emma. He snapped. Harrison just acquired prime coastal real estate that my family has been trying to aggressively buy for 10 years. Your father deliberately sold to them just to hurt us. Actually, I said, leaning closer to the phone and speaking loudly enough for Bradford to hear clearly. I sold to them because they offered the full asking price with all cash wires and a 12-hour close. Business is business, Bradford. Bradford's voice instantly got incredibly nasty. Tom, this is unbelievably petty. You're punishing Emma and destroying my family's market share just because your fragile feelings got hurt. Bradford, I interrupted, my voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. Emma tried to steal my house. Your father threatened me with legal extortion. Your mother offered to pay for my moving boxes because she arrogantly assumed I was a broke, pathetic old man. Which part of that behavior should I reward with prime real estate? We were trying to help Emma secure her financial future by taking property that didn't belong to her. Bradford stammered, scrambling for a defense. Property that should have been hers, eventually anyway. According to who? I demanded. Bradford was quiet for a long, heavy moment. When he finally spoke again, his tone was entirely different. It was the slimy negotiating tone of a desperate salesman. "Look, Tom," Bradford said carefully, "maybe we can work something out here. My father has connections in the banking sector. We can arrange some bridge financing for Emma to buy something else inland." "With what income?" I asked. "With her influencer income." Bradford insisted. "Her brand partnerships, her sponsored content, her affiliate marketing links. She makes good money online." Emma let out a tragic broken sob. "Bradford, I lost 30,000 followers last night. My brand partnerships are getting cancelled by the hour. Fashion Nova dropped me. Revolve wants all their clothes back. Nobody wants to work with an influencer who went viral for trying to steal her own father's house." "What do you mean you lost followers?" Bradford asked, sounding genuinely confused. Emma showed me her phone screen. Her Instagram account, which had boasted 500,000 followers yesterday, now showed 423,000, and the number was dropping every time she refreshed the page. "My Instagram live from last night has been turned into compilation videos," she wept. "They're calling it entitled 'Influencer Tries to Steal Dad's House.' I'm a massive joke." Bradford was completely silent on the other end of the line. The silence stretched on for 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Emma Bradford finally said, his voice cold and distant, "I think we need to take a break." "What kind of break?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The kind where we don't see each other for a while," he replied bluntly. "My parents are absolutely furious about the Harrison deal. This whole situation with your father has become too financially and socially complicated for my family." But we're engaged," she cried out. "We were engaged before your father declared absolute corporate war on my family's business." Bradford shot back. I reached out and took the phone from Emma's hand. "Bradford," I said calmly, "I didn't declare war on anyone. I simply sold property to the highest bidder who met my specific terms. If that hurts your family's precious business, maybe your father should have made better offers instead of sending threatening letters to my home." "Tom, this isn't over," Bradford growled. "Actually, it is," I said. "Emma is no longer my financial responsibility in any capacity. Which means she is no longer your convenient access point to Ocean View Holdings properties. I highly recommend your family start looking for real estate investments elsewhere." I tapped the red button and hung up the phone. Emma stared at her cracked screen like it had just physically stabbed her. "Dad, Bradford just broke up with me, I heard, because of what you did," she screamed, anger briefly flashing through her tears. "Because of what we both did, Emma," I corrected her firmly. "The only difference is, I did it on purpose." Emma completely collapsed into herself, sobbing uncontrollably. "Dad, I don't have anywhere to go. I have nothing. You have exactly 60 days to figure it out," I told her. "With no money, no job, and no boyfriend. Welcome to adulthood, Emma." The official eviction notice was served at exactly 00 a.m. by a Harrison Development Group corporate attorney who looked like he'd much rather be anywhere else on earth. Emma signed for it with shaking hands on my front porch, while I watched silently from the kitchen window. By noon, the story had officially exploded far beyond social media. Local news networks ran headlines like, "Malibu property mogul sells $14.6 million in real estate after viral family dispute." Then the major real estate blogs got hold of it. "Ocean View Holdings CEO executes stunning revenge sale to rival Harrison Group." Emma's phone hadn't stopped ringing. She finally turned it off after the fifth call from TMZ. "Dad," she said, peering through the blinds. "There are photographers outside. 3 unmarked cars were parked across the street. Telephoto camera lenses pointed directly at the house." "You're famous now, Emma," I said dryly. Her Instagram account was hemorrhaging followers by the hour. Her lucrative brand partnerships were getting systematically cancelled faster than she could read the emails. "Sugar Bear Hair just terminated my contract," she said numbly. "And Revolve wants all their luxury clothes back. They're sending a courier this afternoon." "How much clothing is that?" "Maybe $15,000 worth." I watched Emma frantically gather designer pieces from the guest bedroom closet. Silk dresses, designer shoes, expensive handbags, all tagged with high-end brand labels. "Emma," I said, "how much of your wardrobe actually belongs to you? I mean, how much of the clothing did you buy with money that you earned yourself?" Emma searched through her massive closet for several minutes. Finally, she held up a pair of faded denim jeans. "I bought these at Target 2 years ago for $39. She kept looking and eventually found a plain sweater from H&M and a few promotional t-shirts. "Total value, maybe $200. Emma, you are 28 years old, and you own $200 worth of clothing that you actually paid for, I said softly. Everything else was free or a gift. I thought I earned it by posting, she argued weakly. Nothing is free, Emma. Someone always pays the bill. Emma sat on the bed, surrounded by massive piles of expensive clothes. Dad, I don't know how to live without money. Most people figure it out, I told her. Emma's phone buzzed with a direct call from her best friend, Madison. She answered on speaker. Oh my God, Madison shrieked. I just saw the news online. You need to disappear for a while. Just go stay with your dad at the beach house until things calm down. Madison, I can't stay with my dad, Emma said. He sold the beach house and my apartment building. I have to move out in 60 days. Madison was quiet. Do you need a place to stay? I don't have any money. Dad cut me off completely. Bradford broke up with me. All my brand partnerships are gone. Madison's voice got very careful. Maybe you should just apologize to your dad again. Grovel if you have to, I tried. Emma cried. He's not listening to me, I spoke up, leaning closer to the phone. Emma, I am listening. Emma jumped. Dad, what's the difference? Listening means I hear your words, I explained calmly. Rescuing means I fix your problems for you, and I am completely done fixing your problems. Madison abruptly made an excuse about a poor connection and hung up. Emma was officially on her own. 3 weeks later, Emma showed up at my house again. The new owners were taking possession in a few days, and my boxes were packed. This time she was wearing the cheap Target jeans and the H&M sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, devoid of professional styling. She looked like a normal 28-year-old woman. Dad, she said, standing on the deck, can we talk? Of course, she sat down. The arrogance was entirely gone. I got a job, she said quietly. A coffee shop in Santa Monica. It's minimum wage, but it's something I walked in and asked if they were hiring. Turns out it's actually that simple, when you're not too proud to work. Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wrote something. I wanted to read it to you. She unfolded it, her hands steady. 3 weeks ago, I tried to steal your house because I honestly thought I deserved it more than you did. I spent 28 years taking everything you gave me, and I never once asked what it cost you. Not just the money, but your time and energy. I never said, thank you. She took a deep breath. I learned that I don't know how to do anything. I can't budget money. I can't cook. I can't solve my own problems because you always solved them for me. I'm not asking you to take me back into your life, Dad. I'm not asking for money or help. I'm just asking for a chance to learn how to be someone you could actually be proud of. She folded the paper, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I know you probably can't forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I understand now why you did what you did. You didn't punish me. You taught me. You showed me what my entitled choices actually cost. And you gave me a chance to learn who I am when nobody is paying my way. I looked at my daughter. For the first time in 10 years, I saw the girl who used to build sandcastles on this very beach. Emma, I said, standing up. Would you like to have dinner next week? Her face lit up with pure joy. Really? Really, but I'm paying. She insisted, a smile breaking through the tears. I laughed. Emma, you make minimum wage now. Then we're going somewhere that serves minimum wage food. She grinned. Deal. Emma headed toward the door and turned back one last time. Thank you for everything, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. I smiled. After she left, I sat on my deck and watched the sunset over the Pacific one last time. Tomorrow, the moving trucks would arrive. I'd look for a new house further inland. Something that felt like a home instead of an investment portfolio. But tonight, I felt like I had finally done something right as a father. Sometimes, the absolute greatest gift you can give someone isn't a trust fund or a $3 million beach house. Sometimes, the greatest gift is simply giving them the chance to earn what they thought they deserved.